Thank you. Let's jump right in. This is going to be about alt.control games with Rust. I will actually talk a lot about this, so I will start also with introducing myself, because that's a thing that is easily forgotten if you're on stage talking to a huge crowd of people, like, hello, everybody, like, also in the back. Yeah, cool. So who am I? I'm Lisa, or actually Listless on the internet, with most of the time this avatar that I stole from a forum, I think like 15 years ago. You might recognize it, you can talk to me about it. These days, I kind of work as a creative technologist, which is something that is hard to explain to like your tax accountant. But basically, it means that like I like to do fun, creative things with technology. Because I also realized that I'm a bad employee, so I'm just going to do like artsy things now. It's better. And I've been around the Rust community since around 2017. This is the second slide, I think, today that references the Rust Fest in Kiev, where I was also talking about video games in Rust. Those were the days. But I also then slipped into the organizer role. During the pandemic, they ran a little online thing called Rust in Arts as part of Rust Fest Global. And Rust in Arts was really cool because it was kind of like already starting, like opening the space where I really thought about like Rust and low-level and systems things are very essential for artists as well. And we will see why. And because I love it so much, I also decided to start a master's program in creative technologies, which is funny because I already call myself that, but you know, going back to school is fun. I learn a lot. I love it. And this is also relevant for later, so keep that in mind. I already said that art and technology does like big love, but I also realized that for some people this is like, oh, here's this generative painting that I wrote this fancy algorithm and it emulates brush strokes and it looks really cool, and I think it's nice. But for me, there's like one more thing that I think is really, really important, and this is playfulness. Because I don't want to like you know, go to a museum and consume the art, or just like look at it and think about like, oh yeah, that was probably technically very, very hard to build. But I want people to interact with it, to play with it, because I think there's this, outside of the tech bubble, people are very scared of technology, actually. It's this black box, and they're kind of like, you know, I just have to say AI, and you probably know what you mean if you're like non-technical friends ask about like, oh, will it take over? I'm like, no, it's fine. So yeah, I like offering people to have like a playful way to interact with technology. Which brings me right to alt.control, which stands for alternative controllers for games, because there was confusion about this when I talked to people before. It was like, well, controllers for what? No, we're talking about video games here, so I'm still kind of like staying true to my roots. And then there's a high chance, I think, that you have never heard of alt.control before, which is lucky because I have a couple of slides to like present to you the idea of what this is about. Examples. This is one that I think is very fantastic. It's called Mr. Floppy. It was made during the alt.control game jam in 2016, where someone hacked an old floppy disk to make the character in the game jump. Genius. Another really cool example is Hell Couch, which was exhibited at the Game Developers Conference in 2019. It's a couch co-op. Get it? So basically, the couch indicates to you whether you need to like stand or sit. With a couple of people, you can see the LED stripes in the bottom, which is like kind of like your indication of like, okay, what do you need to do? And my personal favorite, or one of my personal favorites, I have a lot, RoboMama's Cooking Kitchen, which is a fully hacked children's play kitchen that basically tells you like what do you need to cook with all the little plastic accessories that come with it, and it's like genius. I love it so much. So if you want to go and maybe try to like define what is alt.control, you could go with using uncommon or custom controllers, which was the majority of the examples that I just showed, or all of them. But you could also say maybe using common controllers, but in like a really weird way, which is not so much what I like, but it does exist out there. I do have an example from a very, very old game that I made, I think 8 years ago at this point, in JavaScript, which uses a MIDI controller keyboard, but not to make music or something or play sounds, but to actually move the shark, because it's like a kind of like a columnized, like columns, and then you can like move the shark around, and you have, yeah. It's also, if you want to know what this is about, I can also tell you about it later. It's also based on a weird idea. Right. So I think if you weren't familiar with alt control before, now you know it's a thing. Maybe it was your first time that you heard about it. That's fine. You're thinking, this is fun, but it also seems very niche and like that's also cool. But what's going on? Hardware things are hard to transport. I don't even want to know how they got that couch into like this like game dev space and into a booth. So it's like you probably just see it at like game festivals or conferences. People make it at game jams, but these things could never be successfully sold as like video games for a living. Like wow. And you're right. And on top of that, most old control games don't even call themselves games. There's this very like interesting YouTube video that I watched from like an alt control game maker who's like, well, the majority of alt control games out there in the world actually go by playful art installation. So if you go to a museum and you get to like play around with something, that could be considered alt control. So this is Love Sphinx, which was made during an art residency, and it is exhibited or was exhibited in 2020 in an art space, and it's like this custom glowing mechanical riddle thing, and you have to solve the riddle by playing the metallophone in front of it. It picks up the sounds, processes it, and then decides, have you solved the riddle or not? So this is actually kind of like technically quite interesting. And then there's this huge space of escape room puzzles where people think about the like really out of the box, like make these kind of like mechanical mini games within escape rooms to then make the entire experience more fun and interactive and pleasurable. And these are like they're so smart about this. Like I love watching these videos, how they come up with these ideas and like putting them together. So yeah, alt control is a little bit bigger, but it's still kind of like a very unique thing that you have to build, like put together for a specific thing, and then you have to build it, and it's quite involved. But maybe you feel like Tina Turner right now, and you're wondering, what's Rust got to do with it? A couple of laughs? No? Okay. Thank you. And I would argue everything, quite frankly, because if you want to go out there and make an alt control game, these are all areas that Rust can touch. So Rust ecosystems gives us, and in this case, I would say like artsy people or weirdos and hobbyists like me, access to so many things, which is why I love Rust. We have game engines and creative coding frameworks that help us with like the graphical stuff. We can go as low as like hardware and microcontrollers to like process inputs, which is what I'm gonna like focus on. There's this entire realm of sound and audio, like you could like synthesize on the spot or just like analyze things, which is really a space that was like reserved for C and C++ up until now. And I would actually like more sound-related talks in the Rust, like be it EuroRust, be it RustFest thing, because I think this is very exciting. And there's just like all these protocols on different levels of like any kind of stack that Rust can talk to, and we get it with Rust's niceness. We have like error handling. That is something that I like come back and like every time I have to do something else, and then I come back to Rust and it's like, oh yeah, it's a result. Whatever you like, it's like people think of like this is the error handling, how it's supposed to be done, and you can just use it and it integrates so beautifully. But you can have this like in all of these broad spheres that happen and that exist and that you can use. It's I really like, I appreciate it so much. With that being said, enough gushing about other people's projects. I want to like walk you through my current project. It's called Writing in the Park with Parrots, and a little bit how I go about like doing these things. Maybe like inspire some of you to like maybe reach out into like a different area of Rust that you haven't touched upon before, because maybe you're I don't know, build like web services, but you have never touched a microcontroller. So this is for you. Try something new. Okay, Writing in the Park with Parrots. It's obviously an alt control game. That's why I talk about it. But it's also part of a uni project where I had to do something, but we were quite free with what we wanted to do. The initial idea is a very Berlin thing. So I live in Berlin, and there's this park called Görlitzer Park. And in the summertime, you can sometimes see a guy cycling around the park with his real-life pet parrots sitting on the bike handle, and he just like cycles around the park with parrots. I saw it and was like, this is so weird and beautiful. Like I will make a game about this because the guy with the parrots in Gertza Park, you're a hero, at least to me. So for the game, I was thinking, it's going to be like a rail shooter and a balancing game using a real bike handle because that could be really fun. I want a mix of 2D and 3D graphics because I've never done that before. And ultimately, I'm going to build this like tabletop arcade cabinet. So like, I was like immediately had like lots of ideas. I was like, but I get ahead of myself. So I was like, okay, like the audience doesn't know what any of these words mean, maybe. So let's take it one step at a time. Walk you through the plan. There will be a 3D world, a 3D scene that I kind of need to create. And we have like a little player entity that will move by itself along a given path. So you don't actually steer the player itself. That's where the rail shooter comes in, because like it's technically from imagine you're like set on the rail and you just like move along the rail and you don't actually do anything with the movement. But what you see on the screen is then the 3D thing, but I will put a 2D bike handle representing the bike handle and birds on this bike handle as kind of like a interface or heads-up display that gives you an indication of how well you're doing while you're actually, so like actually let me hold this up. This is the bike handle in question from an actual bike, prepared and hacked. So you will have to balance with the bike handle, and it's going to be like communicated to the game, where you then the parrots give you, or the reaction of the parrots give you feedback on how well you're doing with your biking. This will all then be put like somewhere to. Does it work? Yeah. With the screen on the desk, with the actual bike handle. I was like, I'm gonna like put this on the Raspberry Pi, and then like I have an ESP microcontroller board attached to the handle, with the gyroscope to get the info of the balancing, and it's gonna be beautiful and perfect. And then I just need humans to play it. Awesome. So this is the idea. That was the plan. What are the components that I need for each thing? The main game I've written with the Bevy game engine. I will talk about each of these steps a little bit more afterwards. Said bike handle and a microcontroller and the Raspberry Pi, which we have to cross-compile our game for. So 3 things. How hard can it be? Let's talk about Bevy. Who has heard of the Bevy game engine? Oh yeah. I also heard a lot about it, but I've never used it before, and I thought this is the time now. I will learn Bevy and see, like, if it lives up to the hype, I think. So I was like, okay, let's try to find some resources, learn this thing, and it's really good. Oh my god. I've never worked with an ECS before, but it's so, like, the architecture is so much fun. You can really see how each version like improves like the APIs that they give you. How like it's just like I don't want to see the dark magic that happens behind like the component stuff that they do, but it's like to use it. It's so beautiful, and like if you're thinking about making a game, like check Bevy out seriously. And I even have a recommendation. Logic Projects on the YouTube channel does amazing tutorials for both like learning Bevy, but also just like casual game dev stuff. There was just like, so there's 2D and 3D things. I'm like, this is really good, and like I learned Bevy in like no time. Also, on top of that, there's so many community plugins already. So I was like thinking, okay, so I will need to talk to my board about like ideally Serial. And I was like searching for it. Oh, Bevy Serial, there's already a plugin. That's so cool. And then I was just like going down. It's like, let's see what other plugins are there. And I think the only thing that I didn't find was a Bevy MQTT thing, which is like, okay, it's fine. This is so niche. It's fine that this doesn't exist. But really, I was overwhelmed. Like basically for everything that I wanted to do, there was something out there. And yeah, development is so rapid, like, and it's also very well documented. So like, I could easily, even if some of the materials were out of date, because like that happens, which is a little bit of a downer. But even just like the migration guides from like one version to the next are so well written that it's very easy to like catch up on. So I thought it was excellent. But I do want to like wrap this in a little anecdote that happened to me while developing for this. So as I said, I wanted to basically get the gyroscope data like raw from Serial from the ESP and like feed it into the game so that I have the most possibilities to like work with the data within the game. And as I said, there's Bevy Serial. It's like, yeah, done, plug in like Serial port and whatever. It's gonna be great. but then I realized this thing that okay, Bevy serial is like wasn't updated in 6 months, and it was already like cargo was already complaining that it's like, oh, the dependencies. Oof, I'm not going to compile this. And I was a little sad because I was like, it would be really nice because it was exactly what I needed. So I opened the ticket and was like, will you maybe update this? And the author was like, yeah, soon. And I know that's nice. And I was like, okay. I just think about something else. And then I had the idea, oh, maybe I could have the game and the board communicate over Wi-Fi because it's an ESP board. They can it has Wi-Fi on board. I could do something like a web server and then have the game poll from an endpoint or something and just change some of the game logic. I used Bevy request for that, and then okay, it wouldn't just be as quickly, but I can kind of account for this within the game and did all of the stuff, and then realized it's a wireless controller now. That's even better. Then I just need to attach a power bank. How do I do this without it being too heavy? So I had all of these thoughts and ideas, and it was just going places, and then I realized, oh, the author actually updated Bevy 5 days after I opened the ticket. It was like, oh, okay, revert everything. Let's use Bevy serial. It just works. It was fine. It was great. Shout out to Bevy serial. That was lifesaver. Let's talk about the ESP32. Has anybody tried Rust on the ESP? Oh, a couple. Cool. So if you don't know, I actually have one. If you want to come talk to me afterwards and hold it in your hands, maybe. So I've done a lot of stuff in the Arduino world, with different kinds of things, and I already knew about the ESP because the Node MCU and stuff is just it's a staple in the ecosystem. But obviously you write the Arduino flavored C++ and you use that environment. Because I always had the feeling that the embedded Rust embedded system is very much focused on the industry and having actual real world engineering projects use Rust and not just little hobbyists like me who build just one thing once and then probably throw it away in 6 months. So I was like, is Rust on ESP, is this hobbyist ready? Can I, with zero experience in proper embedded bare metal development, actually work with this? And then I read this article. It's just highlighted here, but there's a link in the last slide. This article about a quick start on Rust embedded, and it talked about the, I have to read it, ESP IDF template and ESP Flash and this workflow. And I read this and it's like, if this is true, this is a game changer, because this is so easy, and then you just have basically you run cargo run, and it not just compiles your thing, but it also flashes it directly to your board without any kind of stuff, no extra things. And I'm like, this would be amazing. So I was like, okay. There's even ESPRS even has this has 2 types of training materials for no SD and SDD training materials, with a standard library thing, you don't even have to go all this low level because they worked some magic to enable this for people who are just curious like me. This is so cool. So which brings us to anecdote 2, and I really hope you learn from this. So the board that you want is the ESP32 C3 DevKit Rust 1. And it comes with very cool stuff like a temperature, a humidity, a gyroscope, which is exactly what I needed for my bike handle thing, already on the board. But it was kind of pricey. It was around 50, 55 euro, which doesn't seem like a lot, but I can get 10 ESP32s that are not the Rust board for the same price. It was oof. Okay, I was I'm gonna be, a fox, and I'm just browse for a cheap reseller. And I found this really good offer. It was too good to be true. So I was waiting for a little bit, the board arrives, and I set up the environment, run the examples, and the tooling is awesome. This workflow with just compiling and running, it's so good. I was this is great. But for some reason, I could not get the sensor reading examples to work. So the hello world and stuff, that was fine, it flashed, but I couldn't, there was just got these weird error messages, and I'm it should just work. Why is this really not working? I was research, figuring out what's wrong, and maybe you can guess what my mistake was? Exactly! I accidentally bought the wrong Rust ESP32C3 board. You want the one with the green check mark. I bought the other one, the Rust C3 dev kit M1, I believe, because like at some point during my frenetic research for like a cheap thing or a cheaper thing, I just like stopped reading the entire thing. So don't be me. Like just spend the money. It's fine. Luckily, I already have a bunch of like microcontroller electronic stuff at home, so I did have a gyroscope and accelerometer module separately. So I was like, okay, I'm just not right now. I just want to see if like my idea actually works with the bike handle and everything. So I put this together and did it in the Arduino setup. But I did order the correct board. Had for it waited for it to arrive. Write a new sketch. It arrived this Monday, so it's not quite there, but like the basis is there. It just needs a little bit more work. The version that I currently have is the Arduino one. But yeah, it's like basically there, 95% there, 99 maybe. But the workflow is amazing. So like if you're scared or just never tried the embedded workflow with this is so good. Like it's really, use the example, run cargo, land your tooling as like you're used to, and like you're good to go. It's really, really great. It's like whoever worked on this to make this accessible, that is fantastic. It's like, it's like, okay, we came from like, my Bevy experience was really, really good, to the ESP one where there was like my own stupidity that like caused my own bumps in the thing. But I was like, hey, Raspberry Pi, that's gonna be so easy. So I really like Raspberry Pi for running stuff on, then you can just like place it somewhere and like have it run your thing in a physical space, and then in an installation, or I want to have like an arcade cabinet, so I can just like build it in and like be fine with it. And cross-compiling is so easy, right? Like this is one of like Rust things, like red ones like compile for every target. So I thought, until I ran into like some weird external system dependencies that come with a game engine that wants to like talk to various things. Well, that slips right into like the anecdote 3 part, where I landed in like kind of like trying to compile for Raspberry Pi, like hell, I would almost say. Like, call me Alice. Like, I fell down this rabbit hole where like I literally like tried to read blog posts about linkers, where I'm like, I don't understand what's going on anymore. Like, I like learning things about like parts of technology that I'm not that familiar with, but this was just like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just like Googling error messages. There's lots of stuff about the same error messages that I was getting, but somehow the solutions were always different and never worked for me. So, okay, at the end of the tunnel though, I found cross RS, or like cross. Are people familiar with cross? A couple, yes. So cross is a tool that's, I think, or I believe it's maintained by the embedded working group. And it's basically a tool that if instead of cargo run target, you write cross target, and then it will in the background spin up Docker containers with the setup and like all the stuff that you need for this target, so that you don't have to like go around like installing all these things yourself on your computer. It's just like always contained in this Docker container. I was like, this is amazing that someone thought of it and it's here. The only thing is though that I still need to configure it a little bit correctly. I need some pre-built steps, like basically things that the Docker container needs to know beforehand. And I'm like, I worked my way through, I think, 3 levels of error messages, and I'm like, I think this is the last one. So it's not working yet, but it's so close. So close. Okay. So I have a kind of working game, but it's not quite what I wanted yet. But I'm going to ask a question anyway. Are we alt.ctrl game yet? And I would say we're a game, definitely. But the rest is still like work on yourself. Like you have to do yourself, because maybe it's not quite there yet. But like what I see, or like what I saw is that people put so much work into like making these like experiences so almost pleasurable to work with, when you know like how hard these things are, but they're so easy to use right now, and it's like it will only continue to become better. And I was like, this is amazing. Like we are so close to this, and I'm excited because like if this project is done and I have it all in Rust and cross-compiled and running, I will not look back. Like this is my stack from now on. These are resources. This is like nearing the end, that you can look at. Like this is all the stuff where I learned things from. I have the bike handle with me. There's a screen in the entrance hall. You can look at my parrots or fat pigeons if you want, and play it a little bit and ask me questions. And this is the slide to take photos of because that links to the actual slides and the code. It's all publicly available, open source. Let me know about your opinions on how bad my code is. And that's it. Thank you.